So Bernardo, I'm really excited to talk to you about your show, Dreaming and Smell, currently on behind me at the Institute for Art and Olfaction. And I'm sorry you weren't able to come. Yeah,
Shame,
like
shame. But
COVID. Yeah.
not physically, but in my heart, I was there, and I think it was, from what I've seen, a beautiful evening. So I'm
Yeah,
happy
it was
that even
amazing.
not being physically there, I was present, and that my dreams were there with me. So it's, in a way, you have my
Yeah,
dreams representing me there.
that's true. I mean, you were completely here, in fact, with your dreams. So actually, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a couple of your pieces and go a little bit deeper, if possible. So I wanted to start with Canna, which basically is a dream where you're driving a car and a cop comes up to the car, taps on the window, and the policeman, is wearing a thick red lipstick with a mustache. But he's very condescending. So it seems like it was a dream that was a little bit unexpected, but also very anxiety inducing. You wanted to get away in the dream. Is that right?
It's funny because the dream is kind of cinematographic, the whole thing, and how I woke up and how I remember. And it's the old car. And I think afterwards, when you wake up, you start also bringing the pieces of the dream together. Smell obviously being one, but also elements that you start remembering and trying to bring together. In this one was indeed, I was driving an old car, and how I know it was an old car because it was the manual gears and the window with the hand, and it was like a really, and it was I was in a kind of a rural or provincial, typical from Buenos Aires where I come from, but it's kind of these roads that you see, farms on the side, and the policeman stops, and it was, first of all, it was coming through, walking with a limp, and I didn't understand what was happening, and then I realized it was wearing heels. It was kind of bizarre, the whole thing. And it's knocking at the, and it was I only really felt the smell, the scent comes very much when he starts talking to me. The rest is kind of unscented, but really it comes the smell of the policeman, which happened afterwards to be an ex-colleague of mine. So in a way, that's part of the kind of weird elements that coming together in the dream. And it was basically the smell of the heavy lipstick. So it has all the violetly, the lilac, the typical smell of lipstick, and the breath of red wine. And that's very much what the smell is about, the smell of red wine and lipstick. But it's not I wouldn't say it's not a pleasant one, but it's kind of a realistic. Actually, for this scent work with Birgit Sigrand, that we even use the headspace of a living wine. So actually, the smell of wine is not an interpretation. It's actually the headspace that we afterwards, or actually she worked out around that accord into what's the smell of cop, which actually is policía, the cana.
So is cana slang for cop in Argentina? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cana and boton. Those are the slang words for policemen. And that's why in that one I had to put originally, if I was going through my notes that I have in my booklet in the morning, and I had cana, okay, but nobody would know what cana is, and that's why the translation into cop. But yeah, that's how we call the policeman.
Oh, that's funny. So when you're dreaming and in smell, is it something that you're conscious of while you're dreaming, or is it something in the morning you sort of remember, or both, or how does that work?
Yeah, so how it works, and actually I think if we go back in time, I thought it was everybody dreamt with smell, okay? And I was not only, I mean, it was actually 7 years ago or so when I was talking with somebody who's very, also people might know, it's Caro Fervay, who works, so we were working with her in her PhD project, and said, oh, last night I dreamed, and I remember that I was talking about a dream that I had was smell of anise, and she stopped me, and the way Caro is, what do you mean that you dream with smell? Well, basically, yeah. I said, well, do you know that that's pretty unique? And she sent me some papers and some research. For me, the way the smells appear is very much not so conscious when I'm dreaming as such, but when I wake up. Okay, so when I wake up, it's similar when you wake up with a dream where you had the sound. Okay, the difference is that usually when it's with sound, you incorporate sounds like the telephone or somebody talking into your dreams. In this case, they're kind of generated internally in the brain. And that's something that I learned after some reading about it. And you wake up and some dreams are kind of very vivid. Others, it's much more a feeling. It's not different from any other dream, that sometimes you have vague memories and others are very clear. Sometimes we remember, as I mentioned about cope, elements, and you start bringing all the parts together. I just wake up and I try to make as much notes as I can. And not all of them are scent related. Okay, in the smell, basically on the one of my mom, it was really a feeling, an emotion. It was the smell of something, that the comfort in the embrace, in the smell. And it was a color. It was the color of actually, it was one of the beautiful sheets that you have behind is the color of the dentist
smock uniform. So, and you're talking about this mint, yeah. Right? Yeah.
And that's why it was a very chromatic scent and an emotion, a feeling attached to it. There was no clear image. In the other ones are very kind of even lucid. The one of the copy was almost a video clip. It's something that I was seeing myself. So it was kind of so there's not, it's not always the same. And I think that happens with any other dream. Sometimes are more related to personal. That's a bit on how it was. For this exhibition, I picked two that are very personal, that are very much speaking about me, my story. But others are bizarre, as usually some dreams are. That it's like, what's the relationship between this and this? And I think that's very much into the subconscious, which I never dived into it. But yeah, it's a bit, I wouldn't say random, but each of them are pretty unique.
And then the personal ones. So you're talking about Dentista, which is about your mom, and then you're talking about Diary Maker. Yeah, which is about your teenagedom, your teenagehood. So let's talk a little bit about that one. So, it's based on a Led Zeppelin song. So I assume you were into Led Zeppelin as a teenager.
Yeah, actually, it was my introduction into Led Zeppelin. And that's why I also afterwards all the parts start to come together. For that specific dream, I woke up with a song in my head. Sometimes you wake up with and it was the song and then all the different elements. And it was almost like an olfactive Polaroid. Okay, wow. Because it was a very static scene. It was a corner of a room, and that corner of the room had a very clear, distinctive smell with all the elements that were also bringing the story together. And it was very much a moment of my life that I was evolving from a boy into a man. Okay, so it was this transition. I was discovering Led Zeppelin, traveling on my own for the first time, flying on so it was a moment that very much what that dream was. And it was not only an olfactive Polaroid, but that feeling of having the wind in your face when you're going forward. And that's very much what I try to, in a way, try to transmit and working with Maeve. It's like, look, it's not an evaluation for a product. It's really much trying to bring a feeling, an emotion, and stories, because the Palo Santo that you mentioned, that the smell is very clear. The smell of Palo Santo, it was what we were burning in the room to mask other smells. So it is very much those smells that in a way they are telling a story to me that might be very different to the story that tells to you. So that's why I like about the very personal ones, because they're, like most sense, very related to your individual story. And these ones are very almost autobiographical, if I may. I mean, it's very much telling a story about myself. The others are just telling random stories. So yeah, Diary Maker, which actually the way you pronounce it is Jamaica. So it's the Led Zeppelin was the Jamaica, was a way of calling Jamaica. It was a song that randomly, it's a reggae song from Led Zeppelin that randomly landed in the record.
Huh.
It happened there. I don't know if it has a.
I don't know the song. I'll have to look back at my Led Zeppelin tapes.
Yeah, it's Houses of the Holy. Yeah, so it's a. And the other thing is, I haven't heard that song for ages. So it was after that I was okay. Time to go back to the archives and rediscover these lost gems. And that was also very much on how I briefed the perfumer. It's telling that story and trying to replicate as much as we can. And I have this privileged opportunity to work with the perfumers and have a conversation about it and have these iterations until we reach a place that is very much speaking of how I remember the dream, the smell in the dream.
So how do you brief the perfumer? I mean, do you say, hey, here are the elements of the dream? Or do you, I mean, yeah, how does that go? How does that work for you?
How does that work? It's kind of an atypical way of briefing or working with perfumers. I mean, at least on how I work on my day to day. The similar part is you know them very well, so it is very much an open conversation. I and it's hot from the oven. So usually it's the next morning. I can guys like Ricardo, maybe I had a dream. I had a dream. No, I dreamed about this. And let me tell you about it. And I tell them as much as and they ask questions. And there was a sound. I don't remember. And they ask questions. So it's kind of a very much of a dialogue. I usually gave them that kind of with what I kind of try to describe. They give it a first shot. Okay, they give it a first round, and then it's not a lot of iterations, because when you wake up from a dream, it's not that you have the detail that you will have when you breathe for a fragrance. As you know, increase the coriander note. It's more just to get that feeling as how you remember and how you wake up that morning. And there's no actually like everything. There's no right or wrong. It's just on how it speaks about my dream, how it fine, and that's very much on that process that we go through with the perfumers.
It's hard to convey a feeling in smell because, I mean, this is the thing I always find challenging with olfactory art. I'm curious about what you think. You know, you have a feeling, and maybe that feeling for you, let's say you feel a sense of security and coziness on a cold winter night. You know, to me, that feeling, that emotional feeling would translate probably to something like a musk or a cashmeran, or, you know, but maybe to someone else it wouldn't. So how do you circumvent that sort of personalness of scent, you know, which is challenging when you're trying to communicate? Yeah. What do you think?
I in a way I'm free from that aspect, because in a way I'm not trying to convey comfort. Okay, I'm not trying, because I wouldn't have gone to Eugenol to convey comfort, okay? Because that's me. So I know that the smell of dentist for some people, or most people, will have a of the it has a
oh my God, the sound alone just my stress goes
some
up.
people
Yeah.
smell and they have automatically the physical reaction.
Yeah.
For me, the physical reaction is completely different. So I don't worry so much about what it conveys. I'm more about capturing something that is very much encapsulated in a dream.
Yeah.
So in a way, I am kind of relief of that. And I think when it's in art, it's what you want to convey. Yeah, it's a challenge, specifically when we talk about smell, and especially when you're talking about not the smell of clean, okay, or the smell of things that are kind of a general understanding of how clean smells, okay. When you talk about, I don't know, joy, for you might be rum and party and flowers. For somebody else could be something completely different.
Yeah, totally.
But I think I'm kind of with this work that I've been doing, and I do it, I'm kind of relieved from that.
Yeah.
Is it saying what I want to say? It's not what I want to say. What I want to say is to really to capture that stuff and share it. And what will trigger, that's the beauty of it. Because when you said about people were super hooked or were intrigued about one of the other, great to see that. I mean, for me, the interesting part is to see the reaction that was asking you. How did people react? What are the and I think that's the beauty of this of art and olfaction in a way, especially when with this smelling in dreams.
Yeah, and I suppose that because they're your dreams, if it smells right for you, then that's that. You know, it's there's something so hyper personal, especially about Dentista and Jamaica. I don't know how to say
Jamaica. There's a kind of the kind of Jamaica. Yeah, on those ones are very personal, but on the other hand, you really pick the Palo Santo. You really bad, and for you it will have. They will carry a meaning. They will carry.
That's true.
But for somebody, it might be something different. So I think that's the beauty about olfactory art, that you don't own what it will generate. You own in a way that trigger. Okay, so in a way you have control of what you do. Now, how it resonates with other people is completely out of of your
Our
control.
hands. Yeah, that's actually really cool. I never thought about that, but you're right. So you spoke earlier about Ricardo Moya, who you selected to make maybe the most personal dream of all, which is Dentista, which is about your mother, because your mother worked in a dental clinic. So you already touched on the fact that there was eugenol, which is a component of clove, and I think nutmeg, right?
Yeah.
Which is, of course, so strongly used in dentist practices, not in the U.S. so much, by the way, but elsewhere. Yeah. So what was that process with Ricardo? I mean, how did you go about conveying sort of the emotion of the dream to him?
With Ricardo was an easy one, and by the way, that was one of the first scented dreams that were created when I discovered that I had this condition about dreaming with smell. And in a way, it was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but with Ricardo, I have the blessing of being a friend, a part of being a colleague, and he knows my story, and he knows that I lost my mom when I was very young, and he knows about the emotional part that dream had. Okay, so with him, it was almost like a therapeutic. I wouldn't say psychoanalysis, but it was, what was it? And the journey evolved, because the one that we first created, and the one that people can smell, the reopened space of the institute, it changed. Okay, the original one was really about eugenol, and it lost a bit of what really what the smell was. So in a way, we had the chance to rework and really bring more the cabotin, the smell that my mom was wearing every morning before going to work, and the layer of the eugenol, the clove, the nutmeg. So it's kind of a layer. I think with when people smell the sheets, maybe they might not smell the full eugenol. It comes more the floracy and the clean aspect of cabotin. But it was a very personal journey, because it was not just about the smell, it was more about how we can really bring that feeling, at least to me, that was really capturing that feeling that I had when I woke up with that smell. And I have to say, it was super powerful, not only the waking up and the taking the notes, but also the creative journey, because I haven't smelled cabotin since I was a kid. Wow. Okay, so in a way, coming back to that smell was kind of opening boxes with stories. So I think it was the power of creating that one was super emotional. Not only the dream, but also the creative journey with Ricardo. And it was good because it was that creative journey that you mentioned. It was kind of an accompany working together with him.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you. This is where it must be so awesome working with and within IFF, is that you mentioned in your text that you have the original formula by Jean-Claude Delville at IFF. So, I mean, you didn't have to just approximate cabotin; you could nail cabotin. That's really cool. It's a little historical.
And that was an amazing discovery, because when I woke up, I knew what it was. So I started to do some kind of research on which were the notes that I wanted, because I'm by the way, I'm not a perfumer. So
right.
When I just had to go to the books, as everybody does, and start to read. And I'm doing some research. I realized, it's an IFF creation. So let's go to the archives. And going through the archives, we could go to the original formula. Many of those ingredients today are banned, okay? But it was very much on how we could really work together to capture. No, it was not we didn't copy what are those elements that were really captured?
Crucial, yeah.
Ricardo was working on that and really reading, what is it that we want? It's more about the cleanliness, it was about the florals, it was about so it was also kind of a research work when recreating this fragrance.
Yeah, that's really, really, really cool. I mean, that must have been a lot of fun for Ricardo,
Yeah, definitely.
So okay, so then
also the base, and also working in the base that they feel more comfortable, because that's the other thing. We're working in softeners or in fabric refreshers. So also when creating that, you also need to contemplate the technicality.
Yeah, the application is different.
For a base like a softener or a refresher is different than we work on alcohol. So also having the chance not only to think about the hedonics, but also on how we can really bring this into laundry products, that was also a great privilege that I had, because I was I thought in bringing it into sheets, because in a way it's this kind of distillation of my dreams into the sheets or into the pillow, and we could use actually the product that you use to fragrance a bed linen. So that was also part of the privilege of working with perfumers like Ricardo, people working with fabric care products.
Yeah, that's it must be fun for Ricardo too, a challenge.
Yeah.
So the last stream, and the one that I will say at the opening, people were like, "Oh my God, it's so intense," was Departures, which you did with Ang Viet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, you're in an empty casino. There's a damp and moldy carpet, and then there's anxiety. You're feeling anxiety, and then some women walk by, and they're wearing intense perfume and hairspray. So. Yeah, I will say that, and the perfume itself has this sort of floral accord that's really on it, as well as this base of it's funky at the bottom there. So talk a little bit about working with a perfume that it is quite unpleasant in a way. I mean, unpleasant is a relative term, but it's funky,
Dreams per se are not always pleasant. And I think that's also what I wanted to convey. I believe me, not all my dreams are pleasant. Okay, so in a way, the scented dreams sometimes are unpleasant, like this one. And this one had a very heavy energy to it. Okay, and Departure was very much the anxiety that I was opening the bag and I was finding belongings of somebody that was not me, and a key and the telephone and a charger, and I was feeling I was putting somebody in that. So it was really. And the smell, the base that people might maybe have not recognized, it has a kind of a repulsive aspect into the creation. That was very much on how I started to work with Ang. Okay, so it has catol, it has a very animalic element on into the fragrance. We had scatol, indol, cresol, ingredients that are not per se pleasant, and it has this kind of cow manure, you say
yeah, totally.
And that was coming because I had this dream and I had it in my notes, and I never had worked on the fragrance, so I had a lot of them that I never had. I still have not kind of executed the fragrance, and we were working on a project for the Maurits house, for the museum, and he worked on a big the fragrance for a bull that has the bull manure. And when I smelled that, he said, "This is it." Okay, so this was the starting point, was the smell of disgusting manure, the dampness of the sheet. And then it was more the different elements. So it's kind of, okay, let's use this canvas. Let's use this kind of the white noise, which is the smell of unpleasant. And then we need to bring about the element of the ciliage of the lady wearing this heavy fragrance, the casino, bringing that sense of unpleasant but still familiar. So that's why I would imagine that people kind of get hooked to it, also because it's powerful. That's why I was asking on how it relates, because if you have cough, which is kind of more delicate and subtle, and you have this bomb, there is a contrast there. So with that, it was like very much on another project, it was, you nailed the smell of the sheet that I needed to bring. Let's work on it. And I worked with him into this creation, and it came a very, I wouldn't say nicely, but I think it really captured that sense of the dream that I woke up feeling that I have somebody sitting on my chest, and there's an asphyxia feeling, and the smell is not pleasant, but in a way you can relate to. There's elements there that you can really pick and definitely brings that dream to life.
Mm-hmm. I think also the anxiety, the unpleasantness of the feeling, the emotion that you had in the dream. I'm not saying that the smell is I mean, it's not pleasant in a classical sense, but I wouldn't say it's unpleasant. It's interesting, but you do feel a little bit oppressed by it, I mean, I washed all the sheets, and I did it by hand.
I forgot to mention wear gloves.
I didn't wear gloves. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, and I didn't mind. I mean, I don't care. I don't mind having smell, but that one in particular, I was like, wow, that really is something that I feel, I notice it. It's on my day. It's in my day. it's coloring my day in a way that isn't bad, but I wouldn't say that it was like, oh, that's so nice. It was like, oh, okay. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it for that reason, and I think a lot of people who came to the opening really enjoyed it for that reason as well. It was something that really stayed with you, as unpleasant
And
smells
it has
can.
this sweet florals, the tuberose, the jasmine, but also the musky. Okay, so for that one, he used a lot of amber tonic, really trying to bring this heavy musky perfume of the ciliage. So in a way, it was also trying to bring those elements that make the fragrance, I wouldn't say, as I say, it's not disgusting, but has something that repels you, but it doesn't bother you.
No. And I might actually add that one of the more difficult challenges for me within the fragrance was not the scatol, all that stuff. It was actually that heavy floralcy,
Yeah.
That was the thing that made me feel a little bit oppressed. It's like when you get on an airplane and someone next to you is wearing like Poison by Dior or something horrendous, and you're just like, oh no, that feeling of being oppressed by it. Yeah.
And Saskia, that was very much on the explanation I had with Bonnet's explanation, but the way I was describing that to Anne, it was in an elevator. When you got in an elevator, somebody wearing this kind of heavy florals, that's kind of,
it's so mean.
Carried with you the rest of the day. That
totally.
Was very much on the
Thanks
brief,
a lot, you meanie. Totally.
Well,
and I think it really worked. It really worked for the scent. Like it translated really well. So well done on that. Yeah. Well, so what are you working on right now, Bernardo? I know this show might come to Argentina or go to Argentina. Is that right?
Yeah. So now I have a booklet full of scented dreams. It's kind of have this archives or a library of that. And I think now I'm also seeing the reaction, also seeing the interest and really much the good vibe that it generated. I'm now really looking for new spaces to really share my dreams, and Buenos Aires being my
hometown
person. Yeah. A lot of people say, should we do it here? So yeah, the idea is now to in a way, with other scented dreams and others, is to see if we can make this travel and to really start bringing this understanding of smell as a means of art, as a medium to really art in a completely different language, in a completely different medium, and generate what you guys at the Institute of Art and Olfaction are doing is really pick on people's nose. I like to see very much graphical picking people's nose, and to realize that it's not just breathing, and the untapped power of smell has in our lives, but specifically in art. I think it's gaining legitimately a lot of recognition and space. And I think the pioneering work that you've been doing and you are doing now, opening, and it's a very brave action to really make this. It's something that I think I want to carry this torch with me, and if it's in Buenos Aires or be wherever, it's really to start to bring scented art to a broader audience, and to start generating that awareness and that kind of understanding that we can trigger a lot in using smell in the art context.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I like this work is that, oftentimes, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. Certainly, I have. You have people who aren't familiar with the field of perfumery or working with scent, and they want to, but they're amazing artists, and they want to incorporate scent into the art, but the attention put into the scent itself is not at the same level as the attention put into let's say the visual or the installation or whatever. So in that case, like, they stick a little geosmin and they call it a day, and they're like, oh, it's earth, but what I really enjoyed about your piece is that the scents themselves are at a different level of expression and expertise that I would say, and I blame myself for this, like they supersede the installation. The installation is completely secondary to the scents, I mean, you know what I mean? Like the scents are the thing, which is really, it's cool. It really places the emphasis on perfumery or working with scent as the form of art here, versus subservient or gimmicky to something else,
I completely agree, and in a way, sometimes when you see how scent is used in art sometimes can be even a distraction actually than carrying a meaning. Or that you see that it's a great idea, but the executions fall flat and it loses all the power that it can bring. So I think it's already just thinking about the dimension of smell in art, it's already a step forward. Okay, I think maybe in the execution it falls flat, or maybe it is what they have at hand, and they will fall into the.
Sure, I mean, and no hate, no blaming. Like it's an unexplored form for a lot of people still. So people are learning,
I have this privilege of being working in the fragrance industry, and I work a lot with other artists and people that we know and we have in common. And for me, it's really giving access to something that is kind of inaccessible for a lot of people. Okay, totally. So in a way, I've been doing this kind of bridge, but in this case, I really felt the need and the opportunity, and thank you for this opportunity, is to share something that it's actually, this is my part, and this is very much on the way of developing the fragrance. It is very much as much of the concept. Okay. Yeah. The reason why we went into it was the fragrance in the bed linen, is because it is where the dreams happen. We're working on a format that I know is going to work. We might need to calibrate a bit some elements here and there, but I really focus a lot on the overall. I don't know the word experience, but on the overall feeling that you're generating. So I think it's not talking about what's next. I think it's more continue developing and really nourishing this area that it's still incipient.
Yeah, I agree. Well, wonderful, Bern. I'm so excited to have had this show. It was really a lot of fun putting it together. I kind of enjoyed being your agent in LA. I went and found the sheets and I was like, oh, maybe, So I really appreciate the opportunity you gave me to have a really nice month putting this together, So thank you, Bernardo.
Congratulations. The space looks amazing.
Well, so to tell people who haven't been, we have hanging sheets that are all scented. We also have pillows. But in addition to that, we have a smoke machine. So at night, with the LEDs on and I turn on the smoke machine, the whole place becomes this weird, dreamy, and you're walking through. It's pretty cool. So all hail the smoke machine. Anyway, so thank you, Bernardo, for doing this and for your work.
Thank you very much.
Actually, also, just last thought, thank you also for supporting all the other artists that are working with scent, because you have been doing a lot of work on the other side of the spectrum for a long time. So, yeah.
Stronger together.
Stronger together. All right. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Bernardo.